Benchmarking allows multifamily property owners, as well as associated stakeholders, to gain insight into the energy and water performance of properties, the potential for improvement in those properties, changes in performance over time, and the effectiveness of investments made to improve performance.
Welcome to BuzzHouse, a Baker Tilly podcast where you can hear all the buzz around multifamily housing, with all the info you need to help you win now and anticipate tomorrow. Hi, I'm Don Bernards, the partner in charge of Baker Tilly's multifamily housing practice.
And I'm Garrick Gibson, a partner at Baker Tilly, also specializing in consulting on multifamily housing transactions across the country.
Let's get started. Garrick and I enjoy discussing various ideas on the BuzzHouse for developers around what's next, what's coming, what tools can I use, what can add value to your process of developing and owning affordable housing. Our guest today in the BuzzHouse is someone who is always innovating, someone who I truly enjoy brainstorming with and discussing new programs with. And that guest today is Rob Hazelton, CEO of Dominion Due Diligence Group. We're going to cover a wide range of topics, starting with the idea of benchmarking your existing properties. Then, while we have talked a lot on the podcast around the Inflation Reduction Act, there's still more to come. So we're going to hit on that. And finally, we're going to circle back to thinking about your existing portfolio and an asset management tool Rob and his team have been working on. One quick update from around the industry, talking again about IRA and Green and Resilient Retrofit program, which we'll talk about in a few seconds. HUD recently released a notice on GRRP that provides some added flexibility with a key provision for projects combining GRRP and low-income housing tax credits. A big question out there was, does that surplus cash loan have to be paid before or after deferred developer fee? And this notice notes that at least for a 10-year period, deferred developer fee will be paid prior to surplus cash. So again, that's a good notice to review some other updates as well. Now, Garrick and I are very excited to jump into our discussion with Rob. Turn over to Garrick.
All right, thanks for that intro, Don and Rob. It's great to have you back on the BuzzHouse. Before we jump into our questions, why don't you let our listeners know about the type of work you're doing at Dominion Due Diligence Group?
Hey, Garrick and Don, it's great to be back in the BuzzHouse again. Thank you. As many of you know, D3G is a consultant to the multifamily and affordable housing markets. We provide the standard real estate due diligence services, environmental site assessments, capital needs, energy audits, architectural cost review, financial repositioning. We're probably most known for our knowledge of state and federal regulations and how they apply to housing, its subsidies, and its credits. Most recently, I've been personally very engaged in RAD for PRAC to help solve some of our senior housing issues. Very involved in office, commercial, to residential conversions, aiding and stimulating downtown affordable living, and of course, elements of the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, and how to access these available funds for our clients.
All right, thanks for that intro, Rob. Well, let's jump right in. So why don't we start our discussion on the topic of benchmarking your existing housing portfolio? We know some programs out of the Inflation Reduction Act, such as GRRP, may either require or encourage benchmarking. Would you start by letting our listeners know what we are talking about with benchmarking, the process, and why it's actually important and can be a very valuable tool?
Sure, Garrick. Utility benchmarking is just a fancy term for understanding the consumption of resources at a specific property. Hey, Don and Garrick, you know how on your home electricity, gas, or water bill, there's that graph showing how much consumption you have per month? Well, that's the first step in benchmarking. Benchmarking is data analysis. Utility benchmarking is a fundamental asset management practice consisting of tracking, analyzing, reporting the utility consumption and costs associated with a property or portfolio of properties. Benchmarking allows multifamily property owners, as well as associated stakeholders, to gain insight into the energy and water performance of properties, the potential for improvement in those properties, changes in performance over time, and the effectiveness of investments made to improve performance.
Very good. And Robin, real quick follow-up question. Do you perform that type of analysis at your company? Is that a regular kind of engagement you'll do for owners?
Yeah, we've been doing utility benchmarking for some of our clients portfolio-wide for a number of years now. Most recently, benchmarking has become a very prominent thing in our industry due to the IRA applications. As you know, with the GRRP, with HUD, benchmarking is required for those. Typically, we assist owners with both accessing the utility records either from their public utility company or their billing provider, and then part of benchmarking is entering it into the EPA Energy Star portfolio management system, which we help set up those profiles, enter that data in, and give knowledge to, or technical assistance, I should say, to the provider of housing so they
Perfect.
continue to update that data for them.
Very good. No, thank you, Rob. Rob, before leaving the discussion around Inflation Reduction Act and so forth, and getting back to GRRP, which I know you and I have talked a lot about, now there have been at least one or two awards under each of some of the cohorts have had two awards, some at least one award of the Green and Resilient Retrofit Program. Would you be able to give some observations from the awards and what that may mean for people considering applying yet for the next, one or two rounds, or most of them have 2 rounds left?
Yeah. Don, based upon the preceding discussion just now on benchmarking, a lot of the first award winners had good data organization, had control of their data, had benchmarking already available. Hence, most of the IRA elements in the applications are first come, first served with qualified applications. So benchmarking assisted them. Some other observations I made about the GRP awards is a lack of geographic diversification. As required by the awards in the NOFO and the legislation itself, it must be geographically diversified across this country. Yet we still have about 30 states that have yet to see any awards. I look at those as sort of glowing beacons on a map. If I was a developer owner, I look for those states and say, do I have properties in those? Because no awards have been made. There's also other states that have been really heavily awarded, such as Maryland for Elements, or Rhode Island for Leading Edge, or Tennessee for Comprehensive. They may have run out of their awards already based upon the numbers we expect to see. Other observations include the all too obvious incomplete applications do not get awarded. I keep telling my clients these NOFOs, Notice of Funds Available or Funds of Opportunities, are beauty contests. They who have the best application have a chance of winning. So really, it's telling a story. Part of the application is a narrative, and I encourage owners I'm working with to tell a narrative. What are we doing with the green money? How are we going to benefit the residents in such? I think that helps the application process immensely.
Perfect. Rob, I guess I might have lied. I do have one more question, kind of IRA related and so forth. And we've talked, Garrick and I talked a lot on BuzzHouse investment tax credits, right? They're around for 10 years, right? You can finally plan on that. And so a lot of discussion, what's coming next. We know some of the energy rebates are not quite out yet. Maybe that will come on 2025. But a big thing, a few people have been some ticklers out there on the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Rob, what are you kind of like? What are you watching? What are you eyeing? What are you excited about? Like what's yet to come under really the Inflation Reduction Act and I guess specifically the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund?
Thank you, Don, for cooking that one up. Yeah, we've talked about the DOE in the past and the EPA and HUD programs, but the EPA programs excite me. The EPA programs are the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Funds. We've been following that carefully, and we do have some advocates of housing that are at the EPA helping craft some of the award letters and how we're going to put this out there. But one of the things I really like about there's 2 programs within the EPA Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund that apply directly to housing. The first one being $7 billion in something called Solar for All. It's a neat program. The EPA is going to pick about 60 intermediaries throughout the country that will distribute this money. This is solar programs for disadvantaged neighborhoods, communities, and properties. So obviously our LIHTC properties fit perfectly into this. Is to help properties sort of achieve either energy independence or at least reduce utility expenses to tenants and to borrowers alike. We can see this as a way as actually helping a capital stack of reducing utility expenses of property prior to financing. There could be ways it could be used with financing. So it's exciting. But you think I'm excited about that. The second one, even more excited about. And this really is, there's about $14 billion in a GGRF as well that goes right towards something called the National Clean Investment Fund. We've been tracking this because under the legislation, the EPA is going to award 2 or 3 nonprofit green banks the opportunity to distribute this money. I've been following it very closely, and we think we know who 2 or 3 of them are going to be. And why I'm so excited, these green banks will be able to make low interest rate loan investments through multifamily mortgage lenders to eligible properties. Just imagine a current FHA mortgage loan under the 221D4 program with a rate around 6.1% could be combined with a 1% NCIF loan, enabling the owner or borrower to make critical housing become a reality in today's difficult construction environment. It's really a way to buy the rate down and to make green and to do electrification, just trying to keep chipping away at carbon reduction in this country. But one thing I did like about following this piece of legislation recently, I saw a study, read recently that the NCIF is expected to leverage funds allowing for the greening of over 1 billion square feet of building space and as much as 188,000 multifamily housing units. That's a lot of work to be done in the next 10 years, Don. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a lot of things coming down the pike. I really like how you said buy the interest rate down. Kind of goes into my last question to you, Rob, because I know in the past we've talked about when interest rates are as high as they've been over a decade, you got construction costs that were climbing, operating costs are up, that a lot of owners were looking at this and they say, hey, we need to focus a lot more on asset management. And you mentioned data earlier, so we know data is a very useful tool around the asset management function. So would you be able to let our listeners know and us how you work with owners on this asset management function around their capital expenditures?
That's a great question, Garrett. You're correct. As deal flow tightens, many owners, managers look to asset management to increase returns within their portfolio. Tidy up shop, as we say. And this works very well with D3G, as we've always thought of ourselves as a data shop as much as a due diligence provider. Having provided over 30,000 assessments in this country and having that data aggregated from all different services allows us to look at data in a much different way. So what we did, we got together with some of our larger clients. We actually extracted asset management data value out of our typical due diligence reporting on a portfolio-wide basis. See, too often our studies, whether it be environmental site assessments, engineering assessments, or utility studies, the reports are used only at a transaction level typically, and they're not often integrated into a tool for portfolio management. We figure out how to do that. So without getting too technical, we store everything, all the data we collect, using Microsoft SQL Server. And then we use a mix of SQL Server integration services and internally built APIs to migrate data from various internal and external resources into a reporting database. What this means is that all of our capital needs, environmental, energy, climate data, construction costs, etc., is warehoused, where we use a combination of SQL Server reporting services and a tool called Power BI that we love that allows us to virtually display the data as well as being able to make reports for our clients. So a client can ask for a story to be told, a report to be made. Examples we have is, how about bulk purchasing of Energy Star equipment across our whole portfolio to take advantage of the DOE money coming out? Or how about using AI for prescriptive building maintenance across your portfolio based on climate zones? Or even, how about reporting metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions reduction across our whole portfolio by taking the recommendations we make within maintenance? Those are stories to be told to their staff, their shareholders, companies alike. And there's power in data, but there's only power if you can get to it. And that's something Dominion's really good at, is getting to the power of your data.
Very good, Rob. That's very, very impressive. I look for more to come out of that. And I've heard some real life stories around that as well. So that's it for the episode of BuzzHouse today. Rob Hazelton, thank you very much for joining us. Rob Hazelton of Dominion Due Diligence Group. Today we covered a few items around due diligence and asset management, as well as looking forward to what's next on the funding on the energy front. So once again, I'm Don Bernards.
And I'm Garrick Gibson. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. For additional resources around multifamily housing, check out bakertilly.com. If you have a suggestion for the show, email us at bild@bakertilly.com. That's BUILD @bakertilly.com. See you next time on BuzzHouse.